sheriff's office to get your driver's license. In many Idaho counties, the sheriff also runs the 911 dispatch centers. And in my case, I oversee that and that operations. Interesting fact, there are over 3,000 elected sheriffs in the United States, and 55% of them, they employ less than 25 full-time officers. So most of the sheriff's offices around the state are pretty small. The role of the sheriff holds a very important distinction. The sheriff is the only member of law enforcement community that is directly answerable to the people. There is no lawful authority for judges or a court to direct the law enforcement activities of a county sheriff. He is not part of the judiciary. In the end, the sheriff is the highest government authority in the county, higher than the governor and even the President of the United States. It is this fact alone that gives your sheriff latitude that others in law enforcement don't have. So it wasn't until 1996 I was dragged into a Christian history conference in my home state of south of Idaho that I was able to apply the Constitution for my role in law enforcement. Just to mention, I've been in law enforcement 35 years. So it's been a long time, but there I heard Dr. Herb Titus, some of you may be familiar with him, explain the 10th Amendment. Before that, but this moment, my entire education had been cultivated in government schools. Shortly after that, I understood the entire story, how our founders interposed themselves between a tyrannical mother country and the people with the Declaration of Independence. And that was the foundation that I learned. I want to share with you 5 examples, and these are just 5. There's been many over the last, in January it'll be 13 years that I've been serving as your sheriff here in the county. The number 1 example was the coordination with local jurisdiction against the federal government closures. Some of you may remember on November 29, 2011, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service tried to close off land for a proposed reclaiming fictitious caribou habitat. In total, approximately 375,552 acres were being proposed for designation as critical habitat. The proposed critical habitat was located in Bonner County and Boundary County in Idaho, plus Pend Oreille County in Washington. The Bonner County Commissioners, myself, and the people of Bonner County invoked the 1976 Coordination Act. Because of this coordinated action by the people and the representatives of the people, no land was lost in Bonner County. The neighboring county to the north lost acreage because they didn't stand together with us. The federal government told them that they had locked gates into these designated area where the caribou habitat was, and that I, as a sheriff, needed permission to drive through those gates. If anyone knows me. So I stood in a public meeting with several hundred people and advised the U.S. Forest Service that the sheriff's office, if they needed to respond to any calls for service in that gated area, that I won't be asking for their permission to cross their gates. I actually told them that we would take chains and rip the gates off if we needed to get there. Guess what? They backed down and never pushed that issue again. And I worked in conjunction with many others in civil government to accomplish this incredible feat. And this was done between the citizens, the commissioners, and all the elected officials, and the people that lived up in Coolin and Priest Lake, because they got together to do this. Anybody remember President Obama's executive actions when he was, I hate to even bring that up. But anyway, the following is what I posted on my sheriff's Facebook right after, if you remember, President Obama signed his 23 new executive actions. So, this is what I responded in my Facebook, and I'm quoting, I would say, before a small group of friends and family, I took an oath to uphold the U.S. Constitution and the Idaho State Constitution and the laws of Idaho. Nowhere in my oath did I agree to uphold the arbitrary wishes of a president who strays outside his constitutional authority. On January 16th, it was reported in the media that President Barack Obama signed 23 executive orders. That is not so. President Obama signed 23 executive actions. These so-called executive actions are nothing more than 23 suggestions which do not have the force of law. This is nothing more than a presidential Christmas list that is passed along to Congress for their approval. Even though these executive actions do not constitute real law, the president had directed the federal agencies to carry them out. He is also dovetailing his actions in attempting to restrict gun ownership by changing the rules within the Affordable Care Act. Most of us remember those back that day. I believe in order for the president to carry out his plan, he needs the approval of Congress, which he never got. This is where you come in, people. I urge you to push back now by contacting your Idaho representatives at all levels, state, local, and federal. The threat to your Second Amendment rights will come likely in your mailbox through a questionnaire in the mail and not a knock on your door. These regulations will most likely be tied to federal dollars. Little déjà vu here. Sent to you as an individual. Please contact this office immediately if you are threatened. I cannot do anything if I don't know what's happening. Above all, keep your cool. I will come when you call. You can be assured that my office will uphold and protect your Second Amendment rights. Sheriff Darrell Wheeler. So number 3, some of you remember the John Arnold incident in Priest River. I had received a call that there was a threat that someone was coming for a home visit and take away his guns. And praise the Lord, there was over 100 people that showed up with guns, and we stood there and we held our ground and said, no one's coming to take their guns. And I, as the chief law enforcement officer, I felt it was very important for me to protect his rights, and so I did that, and I wanted to make sure that his Fourth Amendment and our current Constitution is very clear, and law enforcement should not be enforcing bureaucratic orders or policy that are unlawful. And these orders came down as just an order from the federal government. He was guaranteed, and I'm not willing to allow anyone confiscate any of his weapons without a judge's signature authorizing such confiscation. And we stood there together as a community, and things turned out very well. And that order that was sent by the court and the federal government was rescinded when they realized that a mistake was made in paperwork, and we all stood on good ground. Number 4, anybody remember March of 2020? Okay, so when that order came out, I wrote a letter to the governor, and this is the letter I wrote. After Governor Idaho Brad Little shut down Idaho by exerting unprecedented power, I was compelled to send an open letter asking him to recall the Idaho legislature so the issues regarding COVID-19 could be studied and debated. And this is the letter I wrote. Dear Governor Little, and now I call him Dear Governor Chicken Little, but anyway. There is a letter circulating around the nation in response to the COVID-19 crisis written by businessman Alfie Oakes. It brings up the question many important points. Number 1, the reliability of the information disseminated by the World Health Organization. Number 2, our response to that information. And number 3, the cause and effect devastation caused by our response, and number 4, our responsibility to change the course. In the spirit of changing the course, I am urging you to call up the full Idaho legislature and assemble them for an emergency meeting in Boise to discuss these points. I do not believe that suspending the Constitution was wise, because COVID-19 is nothing like the plague. We were misled by some public health officials, and now it is time to reinstate our Constitution. On Tuesday, Governor Greg Abbott changed his state's course by signing an executive order giving churches back their right to assemble. In the spirit of the Constitution, you can request those that are sick to stay at home, but at the same time, you must release the rest of us to go on with our normal business. Sincerely, Sheriff Darrell Wheeler. Of all the things that I've done in the past years, it was this letter to the governor that caused most grief to me personally. I was the first sheriff in the country to publicly push back against the sitting governor. I received multiple "hope you and your family die of COVID" letters and phone calls and messages. The New York Times wrote a hit piece on me and completely distorted my letter. And the most vile reaction was from the medical director of cardiovascular surgery at Kootenai Health, where he said that if my wife and my family got COVID, he would refuse to give me a respirator in my family because it needed to go to people who deserved it. Anyway, you can Google that and read the letters, and it was pretty nasty. But anyway, we got through it, and probably like most of you, in last December I got through COVID-19. Lost my taste and smell, was tired for about 2 weeks, and got on with my life, and it was kind of like a little minor flu, but you know, oh, big deal. And then the last is the mask mandate. During the so-called emergency, which legislatures were not allowed to govern, the governor of Idaho tasked the regional health districts in the state to come up with mask policy for various regions. The Panhandle Health District, which represents the 5 northern counties, voted to make all of us wear masks. The 2 representatives from our county, of course, voted no, and they voted against it. And so when that came out, I felt obligated to post a response. So this is the post I responded. I posted on my Facebook and told our people of Bonner County. The Bonner County Sheriff's Office will not be enforcing the mask mandate passed by the Panhandle Health District. When Bonner County Dispatch receives a complaint of a suspected violation of a mask mandate from a citizen, the complainant will be advised that the Sheriff's Office will not be investigating or enforcing the mask mandate. Dispatch will close out the call and make a record of it. So if the caller, or I call them the sheep, insists on speaking to a deputy, the deputy will call him back and state the same thing. The 3 police departments in the county, Pend Oreille, Priest River, and Sandpoint, who also provide services in the city of Kootenai, will have to make their own decisions regarding it and how will they enforce the mask mandate. Bonner County Dispatch will forward the call to the police departments, and they, in their own, will take it up from there. Governor Little, instead of calling up the Idaho legislature, I take every opportunity to call out the governor, empowered the unelected Panhandle Health District with a legislative function they don't have. Please read what the Panhandle Health District wrote and decide for yourself how it could possibly be enforced. The Bonner County Sheriff's Office is working at maximum capacity on real crime, and it cannot enforce the unenforceable mask mandate. Most law enforcement agencies around the county are either passively or actively refusing to follow these types of directives. Any arrest citations have been issued in the past were related to high-profile targets, such as the Psalm Sing in Moscow, Idaho, and I believe they have nothing to do with public health. They said, "Happy Thanksgiving, Sheriff Darrell Wheeler." So those are some of the, I just want to, before I take questions, talk about Article 2, Section 1 of our state's constitution, Department of Governments. And this is what this says. It says, the powers of the government of this state are divided into 3 distinct departments: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. And no person or collection of persons charged with the exercise of powers properly belonging to one of these departments shall exercise any powers properly belonging to either of the others, except in the Constitution expressly directed or permitted. It's my obligation to interpose between any unlawful edict and the citizens of the county. Both our governor and the president have taken unprecedented, unlawful actions against the people, and they pretend to construct laws that they lack the power to do. So my office and our deputies will be interposing with those unlawful acts and sanctions. And if you have a problem, especially with some of the threats that are coming your way, I suggest you put a no trespassing sign on the front gate and at your door, and you call us and call the sheriff's office, and we will respond, and we will either remove that person, or if it's your desire, we will take them to jail for trespassing. So we are here, and my statement is do not comply with these unlawful actions. There's specific delegated power given in our U.S. Constitution, and as I just read, in our state constitution, and we do not give them that power, and I, as your sheriff, will not recognize that, and you will be protected, and I will stand in the gap for you. So